We would never dream of taking a Ferrari and putting water and sugar and cow feces in the tank and expect it to run. We wouldn't do that. Yet we do it to our bodies every single day of the week. And we expect our bodies to work well. Not just to work well, but to perform like race cars. And then when they don't, we're like,
Marco Borges is a renowned exercise physiologist, best-selling author, and founder of 22 Days Nutrition. His plant-based philosophy blends science, habit change, and purpose, helping people transform their lives.
There's a theory that it takes 21 days to change a habit. What do you feel is the most important thing to change?
The most sustainable form of exercise in the world, do you know what it is? It's walking. You can do it anywhere, anytime. I'm not sitting in the backseat of an Uber that is called my life, letting fast food or the current medical system dictate where my life goes.
The celebrities that you coach, Beyoncé, J-Lo, Shakira, they're athletes. I can't even imagine touring like they do. What is it that you work with them on, those folks that are in the public eye that are having to be able to produce an incredible amount of endurance in their daily lives?
It's always been about
folks. Today, we get the privilege of chatting with the man. That's what I'm going to call him from here on out on this podcast, and you'll see why. He is a father, an entrepreneur, exercise physiologist, New York Times bestselling author, celebrity nutrition coach, and so much more. He's been featured on major media outlets like Good Morning America and Vogue due to his life-changing work, and is dedicated to helping people live their healthiest lives, all while protecting the planet and animals through a non-judgmental approach. He may sound like a superhero so far. Well, it's because he kind of is. Marco Borges is the author of The 22-Day Revolution, the 22-Day Revolution Cookbook, and The Green Print, Plant-Based Diet, Best Body, Better World. Many of you may already know him as the man who got Beyoncé and Jay-Z to embrace plant-based lifestyles. But his work extends far beyond that. I first got to meet Marco pre-pandemic in New York City, where we both served on a nutrition panel. And I found him to be informative, yet very grounded, with a fierce passion and knowledge of the issues at hand. So let's get to know the man behind the legend. Welcome, Marco, to the Switch for Good podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful and kind introduction. I appreciate it. I'll take it.
You betcha. It's all you, buddy. I didn't make anything up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right before we started taping, we were talking about the opportunity that the pandemic presented. And you shared so much hope that it gave people in terms of kind of being an impetus to changing the way that they're living and eating and how they're thinking about the world that they want to create for themselves and for future generations. So I want to start there because I don't know that we've had anyone on this podcast where we really talked about some stories, if you will, on people making really magnificent changes. My dogs are very excited that we're talking about this. So we have this in the background because we're all at home. But I'd love to hear from you some stories, you know, of course, without mentioning some names on people that said, hey, you even said, hey, somebody said, I lost 60 pounds during the pandemic.
You know, in the beginning, I think that for the most part, what people saw were really big obstacles, right, in front of them. You can't go to the office. In many states, you couldn't leave your house, and people were asked to really stay within their personal spaces at home. And very quickly, you realize that people had a choice to make. They could look at it as an obstacle that would hold them back and perhaps put them in a worse position that they were already in, or that they could see those obstacles as opportunities to change, right? To reevaluate their habits, to reevaluate their lifestyle. Because when else are you going to have the opportunity to stay home, right? Not to have to leave your house in the morning. And for the most part, I have to realize that a lot of people are getting up in the morning, getting themselves and their kids ready, rushing off to school, probably not grabbing a sensible breakfast because they don't have time, or at least that's the excuse that they've built into their brain, right? And then, dropping the kids off at school, then fighting through traffic to get to work, to get to an office for a job that hopefully they love. And in some cases, they probably don't. And then having to go through all this every single day over and over and over again. And then they hit the reset button and all of a sudden they're home. And then the first couple of days are like, okay, what now? But then very quickly you realize that some people said, oh my God, this is the opportunity that I've been waiting for. this is the time where I could actually start to focus on my health. I could actually get a sensible breakfast. I don't have to rush off to work. I don't have to. So it almost was like a reset for a lot of people. And to be really honest with you, for the most part, most of the people that I know were calling me with great news. Yes, a few people called me like, oh my God, how do I get this weight off? But for the most part, a lot of people were calling me, telling me, oh my God, I finally have like committed myself to going all in. These are people that were like plant curious or kind of leading a plant forward lifestyle, but hadn't really made the commitment because they didn't have the time or they didn't have the resources or a combination of other things. But they found themselves in a moment in time where they probably weren't going to experience this freedom again for a long time, right? On the one hand, you didn't have a lot of freedom, but on the other, you really did because it was your time, right? You were working from home. You were doing things sort of on your schedule.
In the beginning, though, we didn't know it was going to last for 2 years. And so I think that limbo, there's that not knowing that made people uncomfortable. So they couldn't set routines yet. And then you have 4 kids and you homeschool them normally, but a lot of people had kids at home all of a sudden, all the time. And so that was so hard to integrate. They started then having to deal with their kids rather than having any time to themselves. How did you deal with the pandemic? What came out of it for you?
Well, you know, the funny story is that I went from crazy to genius in like a day. Like it was a matter of a day, because for a long time, my friends were like, you're crazy. You homeschool all your kids. That's insane. I would never do that. And then all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, you're a genius. This is like your routine. You don't have to do anything differently. Like you're not doing anything that you weren't already doing. So it was quite funny. The first couple of weeks, it was more calls that were like, okay, how are you doing this? Where do you go? What are the resources you're using? So it's fun to be able to share some of the successes that we've had along the way with the kids, and to be able to share resources with, friends and people you love is always a good thing. But the reality is, I mean, it was as shocking for us as it was for most people, because we didn't expect it, right? And something like this had never happened in our lifetimes. So for the most part, I was facing the same things that all other Americans were facing across the US and around the world. So, while yes, we are used to having our kids at home, I'm not used to being home all the time, right? My travel schedule was absolutely insane. I was on an airplane 3-4 times a week for many, many years. I mean, I did that for 17 years. So for the most part, I was away, not home. So it was a change. It was definitely a change for us, as it was for most people. So, the one variable that didn't change, that fixed factor, was that the kids were home. But now we were all home as well. So it was quite fun, and we enjoyed the kids immensely. So for us, for me, it's been an absolute treat, so much so that I'm now working from home almost every day. So we kept our office and I'm there, once or twice a week. But for the most part, I'm home because I just find so much joy in being able to, run into their school and say hi to them and run out, the school being their classroom here, and run out, and I'll go in and kiss them 20 times a day, and, tell them how much I love them, and then run back to my desk and do my thing. So it feels really awesome because I get to do things as I wish on my terms. So it's really neat.
You're, king of the revolution, right? Which a reset, the reset. And we're certainly going to talk a lot about what you do and how you do it. But in the pandemic, in the beginning, when you had some friends call and say, okay, I'm ready because I feel like I've got some control over my everyday now, as I'm home and I can get food. What were the steps? Like when you had the full carnivore go, okay, I'm ready. 1, 2, 3 steps, like that you said, all right, take a deep breath, relax. Cause I know you're not about shoving anything down anybody's throat. So when they were requesting it, what was your prescription?
For me, it's always been about starting off with attainable goals, right? Start with small steps, and the small steps, like if someone said they wanted to train for a marathon or wanted to run a marathon, you wouldn't say like, go out and run 20 miles day one, Right. Or a bike ride. You wouldn't go do a century day one, right? You take them around the block a few times and they'd say, okay, that's great for today. And that's sort of my approach to just about everything in life. Start small, start with goals that you could actually achieve. Because the worst part is when you put yourself in a position where you can't win. And when you can't win, then it's defeating. And when you do that over and over again, you start to think that it isn't possible. And it isn't possible because you haven't allowed yourself to make it possible, not because it is impossible, right?
Yeah.
So for the most part, I always say start with something small that you can do. There are some people that are super type A plus that you could say like dive into the deep end and they're going to come out swimming, because once they set their mind to it and they hit that switch, they just do it. But a lot of people aren't wired that way. So you have to first understand the individual that it's coming from. And if I don't know the person, I always say start small and then move as quickly as you want. So like you could start day 1 and run a mile, and day 2 run 3 miles, and day 3 run 7 miles. But for the most part, I say start small. And it's always easiest when you bring your family along with you, because then it becomes a journey that feels a lot more inclusive and feels a lot more of an experiment, of a discovery, as like a fun project that you're all doing together. You try a new recipe, you're cooking at home, you're doing things that you can enjoy as a family. For us, it's worked out really well. When I decided to go plant-based, my wife said that she'd go with me. And we never looked back. And then we raised, our kids have been born and raised in a 100% plant-based diet. And it's really fun because we all do the same thing. So first step is starting small, set goals that are attainable, bring your family along with you, and understand your why. Understanding the why is really important, because I tell people all the time that I decided to go 100% plant-based for optimum health. I won't lie. I wasn't doing it for altruistic reasons. I wasn't trying to save the planet. I wasn't trying to save any one animal in particular. I just did it because I realized that the writing was on the wall, that the more I leaned towards a plant-based diet, the healthier I was going to be. So I was like, well, I'm leaning all the way in. I'm going 100%. And I did. And then once I did that, I started to question where everything was coming from and how it was brought to my table, right? What was the process? And I couldn't help but to go back in time and wonder where the food was coming from when I wasn't plant-based. So I say that I went plant-based for optimum health, and I stayed plant-based for everything else, for the animals, for the planet, for the impact that it has on other people's lives, and for the collectiveness that it brings to the entire conversation, to the, to the movement in general.
Yeah.
You're a scientist, you're an exercise physiologist, and you really dig into the data, like you said. What was the data that convinced you to go plant-based, that it was the healthiest thing, especially being someone involved in sort of the sports physiology world, where there was so much about protein fed to you literally and figuratively?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember you just said that, you brought up the thought, but I'll answer your question in a second. I remember reading a book as a kid when I was in high school that was like how to put on 10 pounds of muscle in like 10 weeks. And it was literally drinking a gallon of milk every single day.
Oh, boy.
Absolute insanity. I would not recommend you trying that, especially.
That'll grow you some man boobs, not the tofu.
Oh my God. And if you want to keep friends, because what it does to your digestive system is crazy. But anyways, for me, it really was a light bulb moment. There was a lot of things that led up to it, but thinking back, I grew up wanting to be a doctor, and at a very young age, I was the guy that would tell you, I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, as far back as I could remember, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be a doctor. And then I found myself, doing biology, pre-med, undergrad work. And I realized that medicine was just too reactive. So my mind was already in a certain place, right? Like I knew medicine was set up, basically it's pharmacology at its finest, right? Like let's figure out what the symptom is and let's treat the symptom. Let's not treat the underlying cause that's really bringing about that symptom, which to me was really very backwards. But that aside, my mind was already there. And understanding that heart disease is still the #1 killer around the world, and that there's a lot that we could do to affect it through lifestyle, through behavior, et cetera. It always puzzled me that people didn't behave better, right? Whether it was, not smoking or moving more or staying within normal weight, et cetera. And then I, read a study by Dr. Ornish where he proved without a shadow of a doubt that you could actually not just arrest heart disease, but you could prevent it and you could reverse it through the adoption of a plant-based diet. And I was just like, okay, there's nothing else that needs to be said to me. Like I've seen it all. There is nothing else anyone can tell me, especially knowing that heart disease runs in our family, right? And by heart disease running in our family, I mean that we are a long lineage of carnivores, because that's the only excuse for it. It isn't a genetic sequencing that's being passed down to us. It's habits that are passed down to us that lead us down this path of heart disease and diabetes and dementia and Alzheimer's and strokes and all the things that I saw in my family, right? I saw diabetes, I saw I saw everything from a very young age. And I just thought to myself, why and how? And how do I prevent that? So at a super young age, I was very intrigued by not just these diseases that were plaguing our family, but that plagued a lot of the families that I saw around us in our communities. My parents migrated from Cuba in the 50s. I was born in the US, but I grew up in a very Cuban household. I grew up speaking perfect Spanish. It was my first language. And realizing that the lifestyle that we were living, the lifestyle that we brought from Cuba to the US, and the habits that we were basically instilling in our children were leading us down this path where we thought that, diabetes just happened to run in our family, or heart disease just happened to run in our family. It wasn't that at all. It was the fact that we were passing down these terrible habits. We're eating junk for breakfast, junk for lunch, junk for dinner, and we weren't, talking about movement, and we weren't talking about stress management, and we weren't talking about the importance of all of these other pillars that we know have a lot to do with how well we age. So knowing that there's so much control, there's so many things that you can do on a daily basis, minute by minute, to affect the way you feel every single day and the way you age and how you prevent disease, it was just a no-brainer for me. I literally remember waking up one day and saying, okay, that's it, I'm going 100% plant-based. My wife was like, what? Yeah, I remember telling my mom, I went over for dinner one night and she served me some food. And I said, no, I've decided that I'm going to go 100% plant-based. And she says to me, why would you do something like that? That's absolutely crazy. You don't need to lose any weight. There's nothing wrong with you. And I says, exactly. I don't want there to be anything wrong with me. And if I don't want there to be anything wrong with me, I have to do this now while I still have a choice. And she just thought I was crazy. But then again, she thought I was crazy when I told her I wasn't going to medical school and I was going to go pursue a career in personal training. I was going to take my degrees in biology and exercise phys and become a trainer. Imagine that, right? Oh my God, we sacrificed so much, left Cuba, came to the US to give you a great life, and now you're going to become a trainer. You could have been a doctor. Oh my goodness. So, for her it was really a shock. But the reality is that, much to her credit, she very quickly embraced the fact that I chose this profession and that I really loved it. And just as quickly, she was like, well, maybe you're not so crazy. Let me see the data. And I just started giving her all the data, just sending everything to her. And I said, Mom, there's a couple of prescription drugs that you probably shouldn't be on that you could probably get off by just switching around a few habits. And so, in the beginning, she was very, reluctant and sort of resistant to any change. And then within a couple of years, she said, okay, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to try it for a couple of months and I'm going to see how I feel. She never looked back. My brother did the same thing. My sister did the same thing. And a lot of my closest friends did the same thing because I realized that I was living my best life because of the way that I was living. Not just because, yes, I'm eternally optimistic, but I believe that we have the power to affect change within our lives and within the lives of those that we love. So
it's so powerful watching someone in action, not just talking about that they're going to do something, but seeing it in action. So you grew up in this very Cuban household in Miami, and you, as you said, you knew something was awry when so many family members around you became ill, sick, suffering from various diseases. Was there a specific story of a family member, an uncle or a cousin or something that you thought, oh my God, that could literally be me?
Not so much it could be me, but just the feeling that I got when I would see, so my mom's mom, my grandmother, we would spend a lot of time with her because my mom was a single parent. So she would drop us off at her house on the weekends, in the afternoon sometimes. She had a couple of jobs. And we would spend a lot of time with Mima, my grandmother. And every time we'd go to Mima's house, Mima was overweight. She didn't eat a, healthy diet. And she didn't move a lot, but she walked a ton. And I remember that every time we'd go walking with her, she'd have to stop every couple of blocks and, either put a pill in her mouth or wait to catch her breath. And I would ask her, like, when I was old enough to realize what she was doing, I would ask her, what is that? And why do you do that? She said, oh, I suffer from something where I have shortness of breath. She had angina and she had, pre-heart disease or already full-blown heart disease at the time. She didn't know it. And it was because of the way she was living her life. And I just said to myself, wow, that's so unfortunate that someone gets to a certain age. Like, think about it. You work your entire life and you get to retire and enjoy what? Like being unhealthy, that just doesn't make any sense to me. It never made any sense, even at a super young age. So I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to become a doctor. When I get older, I'm going to find a way to cure you. I'm going to fix this. So my promise to myself was to find a way to cure her ailments, everything that ailed her, that were also applicable to a lot of other family members that I had and that I still have. So my promise never changed. It was my approach to the promise that changed, right? So I knew that if I followed the path of traditional medicine, I would never be able to fix the underlying cause. I would only be treating the symptom, which was why I pivoted, right? Because I thought to myself, if I'm going to take an oath to do no harm, which is the Hippocratic oath that you take as a doctor, then knowing that there is a better way and doing something different than that would really be dishonest and unfortunate for anyone that I would come into contact with, because I wouldn't be living my truest life. And I just couldn't do that. I couldn't live with myself knowing that someone would come in the office and I would say, yeah, I could prescribe a plant-based diet, but I'm going to give them Lipitor anyways, because they're probably not going to follow I just could not do that. I could not live with myself. So I sleep really well at night. Sleep is very important to me, and it always has been. And I want to make sure that, when I go to bed at night, I feel great about the things that I did. And if there's anything I don't feel great about, I want to do something different the next day. And if I'm practicing, Kaizen, which is one of my favorite words, it's a Japanese word for continuous self-improvement. It's okay to make a mistake once, but you can't do that every single day and come back to it and expect to be your best self if all you're doing is prescribing drugs every single day, knowing fully well that you're not doing anything to truly change the outcome of how this person is going to wind up 5, 10, 15 years down the line.
I got to say, when I went plant-based, there was so many things that I noticed different, waking up in the morning, just feeling so much more clear-headed, no cobwebs in my head or body, and, recovery, even strength gains, which was very surprising. But something I noticed really more than anything else was my extraordinary increase in endurance in my training. So not just like, I can ride 6 hours instead of 3 hours or something like that, but literally just that repetitive endurance, because I trained usually 3 times a day. And from workout to workout, it was I just kept thinking, I can do more. At the end of the 3rd workout, I'm like, I could still do more. What is happening? And we know, my inflammation was so much lower, and the foods that we eat are so energy producing. The scene and James in The Game Changer, when he's doing the battling ropes, and he beats the record 10 times over, and he's like on an hour and a half, and he's just kind of like, oh no, I just learned. So many of the celebrities that you coach, people think of them as like, they just want to look really good. But, Beyoncé, J-Lo, Shakira, they're athletes. They look like it to me anyway. I mean, I can't even imagine touring like they do. So what is it that you work with them on, those folks that are in the public eye that are having to be able to produce an incredible amount of endurance in their daily lives? How do you guide them to that via their diet? And I'm sure there's other ways too, with, training their little physical body, but what are the aspects of their diet that you work with them on to give them that?
Yeah, you said it. I mean, I think you said it. You embedded it into what you were saying, is that when you're eating these clean foods, not only is it easier for your body to digest these foods and to absorb the nutrients, but also there is this net energy, right? The net energy is, a lot of people don't realize you'll eat a Twix, some candy bar, whatever's, you're putting junk food into your body. And let's say it's 300 kilocalories, right? It's really not 300 calories of energy, because there's some sort of energy expenditure to basically digest that. So by the time you're done digesting that junk food, you're left empty. In many cases, you're left with negative energy, right? So when you're eating plant-based, whole food, plant-based foods, right? That's not like a processed anything. It literally is like a carrot, broccoli, kale salad, a, smoothie, what have you, full of fruits and veggies, however you bring these about, right? The net energy is so much greater than anything that you're used to consuming when you're eating processed animal foods, that you just feel great. And most people will agree that I think the average, normal person wakes up in the morning wanting to feel their best. I've never heard of anyone saying to me, I want to feel okay. I don't want to feel great. I don't want to feel bad. I just want to feel okay. Most people are like, I want to feel great. I want to have energy. I want to sleep well. I want to have an incredible sex drive. I want to feel at my peak at 12 o'clock and at 2 o'clock and at 4 o'clock. And I don't want to have brain fog in the afternoon. And I want to feel like I can go and go and go. And what you're describing is a plant-based diet. And more often than not, when people aren't achieving that, when they're not sleeping well, when they're not digesting the food well, when they don't have regular bowel movements. And these are things that a lot of times people are afraid to talk about because it's sort of like taboo. Like you don't ask your friends, well, how many times do you poop a day?
Yeah.
That's not like a, topic of conversation that's often brought up. But the reality is it should be. Like we should be able to talk about these things in an open forum. Like we talk about everything else, why not, right?
Well, it's an integral part of health too, right? And when we talk about health, we sort of leave that out often. Yeah.
And we shouldn't. And we should be okay to share that stuff with our friends. But a lot of times we're not sharing any of that. We don't know our numbers. We know how many people liked our last Instagram post, but we have no idea what our cholesterol is or what our A1C is or what, like your resting heart rate or what your, 3-day, 3 times a day blood pressure is, or what your resting heart rate is when you wake up in the morning or after your workout, or what your recovery heart. We don't know any of these things, but we know how many followers we have, and we know how many likes we have, and we know how many, it's just crazy. I think we need to hit reset every single morning. You need to hit the reset button. Where are you failing that you want to succeed? And if you want to succeed, you've got to set plan in motion. You've got to figure it out. Someone just doesn't give you the address to a place that you've never been to, 2 states away, and you just get in your car and you start driving. You either map it out or you put it in your GPS. You can pull out an old school map and figure out how you're going to get there. And if there's any roadblocks, what you have to do to get around it. Like you've got to set up a plan for success. The old adage, if people don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. Yeah. And that couldn't be truer as it relates to performance. Whether you're someone that's going to tour 50 cities in 75 days, or you're someone that's going to take your kids to school every day of the week and on Saturday and Sunday be running to like their basketball practice or their lacrosse games or their soccer games, everyone's wired pretty much the same. You want to feel great at every moment of, that journey, whether it's going from, Poland to Berlin to do a stadium tour, or going from like LA to San Diego to go take your kids to a lacrosse tournament. It's the same thing. It really is.
Yeah.
No one
that
wants
energy.
To be like, no one's like, I'm only going to lacrosse this weekend. I don't really need a whole lot of energy. I'm going to just sit there and kind of doze off at the game. Like you want to be your best. Everyone wants to feel their best every single day. You know what? I just turned 50 this year. In February, I turned 50. And there's no part of me that feels like I'm 50. And I say that because, you always wonder, like, what will it be like when when you're 18, you wonder, what will it be like when I'm 21? Then you're 21, you're like, oh, kind of feel the same. And then you turn 30 and you're like, still feeling the same. And you're 40, I'm like, still feeling the same. That's a really good thing. I've got the same energy I had, 3 days before I turned 50, but also more importantly, when I was 25, I've got the same energy. I sleep the same. I feel the same, knock on wood, because I'm driving. I'm not sitting in the backseat of an Uber that is called my life, letting fast food dictate, or the current medical system dictate where my life goes. I'm in the driver's seat, and I've got a map and I've got a plan, and I've got, contingencies along the way. Like if this doesn't do this, then go here. And if then scenarios are already played out. And what you find is that the people that are excelling at the highest level have all of this mapped out. They're not just waking up and saying, oh, I've got 5 minutes before I take the kids to school. Pop-Tart, green smoothie.
Yeah.
I'll go with the Pop-Tart. That's not happening by accident. They know before the school, I'm having the smoothie. I'm not doing a smoothie because I got to run out the door. I'll fast. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the juice at this place, or I'm going to have no breakfast. I'm going to do this for lunch. Like they've got it all mapped out because they know exactly what they want out of their life. And that is, I think, where everyone should be. And a lot of times what happens is that you get into this automated system because our brains are wired for efficiency. And it's human. It's like human behavior. It's biology 101. You come to my house and the first time you use GPS, and the second time you may use it on like the last 2 minutes of getting here because you're like, was it this street or that street? By the third time, you've got hardwired efficiency in your brain. You don't need anything. You know exactly how to get here. But that works for you can also work against you. You know, you grab that Pop-Tart and you're like, ooh, quick jolt of energy. The next day, you grab it again. The third day, it's a habit. So why everything that I do is based around habits? Because we are all a collection of habits, from what side of the bed you sleep on to how you behave in the morning. Do you brush your teeth before or after breakfast? Do you do it in the shower or over your sink? Do you shower before or after? Do you shower before and after? Like, all of these things are a bunch of hardwired habits that if you're not seeing the success in your life that you would like to see, you got to check all those habits and figure out which one of them isn't working for you, and then just rewire them and plug another one in place. Oh, that Pop-Tart really is not working for me, because I get to the office and the first thing I have to do is I have to run to the bathroom because I don't feel good and it didn't sit well in my body. Well, your body's pushing it out 5 minutes later because it doesn't want it in your body. Your body knows, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're left without energy. So what can I do? And if you start looking at all these things and trying to affect change in every single one of the areas that you're not seeing the success that you'd wish for, you would be performing like a Shakira, like a Beyoncé, like a Jay-Z, like any of the other people that, you know, you mentioned, like a Dotsie, like an Alexandra, right? That's how you would be performing. But it's not that we're just lucky. It's not that we're genetically gifted. It's that we're putting in the work. And when you put in the work, it gets easier over time, but you have to put in the work. It's like financial literacy. You can't just relinquish the task to someone else and hope, and pray. Hope and pray is not a plan.
Well, that brings us to your book, 22 Days Nutrition, because it talks a lot about your philosophy, which is that about habits, that there is a theory that it takes 21 days to change a habit. I think they've actually done more studies, and it depends on the habit and it depends on the person. But the idea is incredible. And your 22 Days Nutrition is your 22 Days Revolution book, and the cookbook, and your company 22 Days Nutrition is based on this idea that if we start changing small habits over time, we will change our life.
Yes. And I try not to, tell people not to get caught up on the perfection element of it, right? Like, I think perfection is the enemy of progress, right? Like, we know that perfection is impossible to achieve. The pursuit of perfection is what we should be looking for, right? Like, I enjoy that pursuit. I enjoy that journey to try to be perfect at things. Even though I will never get there, there's nothing wrong with trying to get to that place, right? And the idea of 22 days is based on a concept that it takes 21 days to make or break a habit. So it may be 27 days, it may be 32 days. It depends. It's almost impossible to really know how many days it is. But what it's meant to do is meant to empower people. It's meant to empower people and remove that stigma that certain things are impossible and certain people are just born with genetic makeups that they can't run away from, because that is inaccurate. That is completely wrong, right?
And also that it doesn't happen in a day. And I think that's also important to know, is that people aren't supposed to switch, that you allow them to have a certain amount of time to get used to it.
That's correct.
And
that's
in your
correct.
book, The Green Print, you actually help people do it slowly, but this helped because of the perfectionism. Not only the two things that I see that make people not achieve their goals is, one, like you said, they don't plan ahead, and so they fall back into their own habits. And the second one is they bite too much, no pun intended, they bite off too much, more than they can chew, and it becomes overwhelming and they can't fit it into their life.
Yeah, I want to lose 30 pounds for the wedding. Great, when's the wedding? In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I'd like $1 billion by next weekend. I mean, like, you have to set yourself up for success. It really starts with something that simple. You didn't just decide that you wanted to become an Olympic athlete, the year of the Olympics. You spent your whole life working towards that. And I think that people need to understand that, and need to be okay with the fact that you're going to fail and you're going to fall and you dust yourself off. You don't lose, a fight in boxing when you get knocked down. You lose if you stay down, right? So the idea is just dust yourself off and get up and get going again. Some habits are really hard to break, which is why addiction is such a really, it's such a complicated and such a difficult thing for so many people to break. By the way, when I say addiction, I don't just mean alcoholism or drug abuse. I mean, food is the most widely abused addiction on this planet. Most people don't realize it because it's not legal. And in many cases, it's celebrated. Right? Like if you were a recovering alcoholic, your friends would not push alcohol on you. But you could be a diabetic and you go to a party and someone says, oh, come on, that cupcake isn't going to kill you. It actually probably will kill you faster than another drink, right? Because we know there's way more people dying of diabetes and heart disease than of anything else, right? Heart disease is still the number one killer. And I can't stress that enough because a lot of times we forget that it's that important, that it's something that really needs to be thought about on a daily basis. If you don't want to be a statistic, you have to act and think differently. And it starts with something as simple as a daily habit, because that's how you get there. You don't just wake up one day and say, I have a friend that we were having a conversation about weight a few weeks ago. And I said, look, no one wakes up and is 100 pounds overweight. It just doesn't happen, right? What happens is you wake up and all of a sudden you go for your physical and you're 3 pounds heavier this year. You're like, it's 3 pounds. It's not a big deal. 3 pounds times 10 years, that's a big deal. 3 pounds times 15 years, that's an even bigger deal. 3 pounds times 20 years, that's a problem. It's called morbid obesity, type 2 diabetes, pre-heart disease, et cetera, et cetera. 1 in 4 diabetics will have some sort of heart condition. So when you really think about it and you break it down for people to understand how important it is for you to take a step in the right direction every single day, every single chance you have the opportunity to do so. And every meal is that opportunity. Every meal is an opportunity to choose health or choose disease. And when you really put it in that, sort of context, it allows people to understand the power that lies within them to be ultimately healthy, to be empowered with all the health that they can, that be empowered with energy, to be empowered with, focus, clarity, lack of disease.
Hey, do you know a kid who's always got a runny nose, stomach aches, or stubborn skin issues that just won't go away? Sometimes the answer is hiding in plain sight, like the milk in their glass or the cheese on their plate. At Switch for Good, we created the Kids program to help families uncover the connection between dairy and common childhood symptoms. It's completely free and packed with expert-backed tools, simple recipes, and printable resources that you can bring straight to your pediatrician. Every child has the right to good health and a brighter future. So whether it's your son or daughter, your grandchild, your niece or nephew, or even the little one that lives next door, this information changes lives. Explore the resources at kidsandmilk.org. Right on the homepage, it says, get your free resources. And I challenge you to take the first step and gather the toolkit we offer, or the education cards, or the waiting room brochures, and march them into a pediatrician office near you. All right, back to the episode.
For me, it's easier. I don't have kids. I work in a job that is not 9 to 5 that I love, that I have time. I feel like I have the luxury of taking care of myself, and that it must be very hard for so many people, because only and you know this, Marco, Dotsie, only 3% of Americans follow the 4 basic health rules that the United States government recommends, which is don't smoke, keep your BMI around 25, eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, and exercise at least 30 minutes a day. Only 3% of Americans, and we're 3 of them. We're 3 of them. Why is it so difficult, do you think, Marco? And what do you feel is the most important thing to change so that people will, I guess, start being part of this 3%, make it larger?
A lot of it comes down to assuming responsibility for your actions. And, we could sit here and give all the excuses in the world for why people are where they are, and we wouldn't do a single thing to help anyone. Yeah. So I'm going to go the opposite direction, and I'm going to say that for the most part, people are lazy about their health. Sorry. I hope no one gets offended. I hope there isn't a person out there that gets offended by it. But the reality is we're really lazy as it relates to our health, because we want everything done for us. And we live in a culture where we outsource everything. We have our lawns cut for us. We have our cars washed for us. We have our, groceries bagged for us. We have our, anything and everything we could think of, we can have somebody do it for us. I mean, you don't even have to go to a restaurant anymore. Fast food now comes to your house. Think about how easy it is to make the bad decisions on a daily basis. And so it really comes down to how important is it for you to be healthy? How important is it for you to be the beacon of health for your family? How important is it for you to set the examples for your kids? My kids are not plant-based because I'm eating Burger King on a daily basis or because I'm eating some other type of fast food. I don't remember, when I say I don't remember the last time I had fast food, I don't remember as in maybe when I was 14 years old, maybe. And I was always focused on health, and I wasn't plant-based at 14, but I had already hit that switch where I was like, this is definitely not good for me. It's just not possible, right? And I have a friend that has a saying that he uses in his, I won't say what he does for work, but he says, which is mean, but when you really think about it, it's very true. He says, never underestimate the laziness of the American consumer. And it sounds like a mean statement, but really, really think about that, right? Why does Uber Eats exist? Because we're lazy, because we don't want to get up and, make ourselves something healthy. Forget about going out, making something healthy. People will tell me all the time, oh, but it's so expensive. Really? Tell me how and tell me why. When was the last time you tried it? Let's do a side-by-side comparison. Let me put my protein up against yours and tell me if my protein is more expensive or less expensive than yours. Oh, and by the way, mine comes with fiber, which is sort of like gift for purchase. When you go to the store and you buy something and they give you like a little bag, the fiber is the gift for purchase I get with my protein that you don't get with yours. It's just like, really, we have to get to a point where we can speak to each other honestly. I call it open kimono. We got to be able to open the kimono and speak to each other like without feeling like we're going to offend each other, really, really bluntly, and saying, the reality is that we're lazy. We have to stop this, because every single time there's a problem, you don't want to hear, by the way, why are statins, some of the most prescribed drugs on the planet? Because people are lazy. They refuse to do what they need to do to bring their cholesterol down naturally. Because we already know without a shadow of a doubt, the science has proven it. This is not something that you could argue. It's irrefutable. We know that we could lower cholesterol naturally through diet, exercise, and lifestyle. We know it. Adopting a plant-based diet, we would eliminate the cholesterol issue. But no one wants to do it. Most people don't want to do it. They want a drug that gets it taken care of. Why are so many people obsessed with erectile dysfunction medicine? Why? Because they don't want to address the underlying issues. They want a quick fix. I want to have sex. I want to get a steel erection, and I don't want to think about all the other issues. I just want you to fix this one problem. Please don't lecture me. Just give me a hard-on and forget about the rest. And we're not thinking about the ramifications of these actions. We just want it done right now. Until we sit together as a community and say, we can address these issues, but in order to address them, we really have to peel the layers of this onion and get down to the root cause of it, is that we're lazy. We're being lazy about how we live our lives. The minute that we stop that, everything changes. Everything changes. It takes work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the number one, right? Get to work. It's going to take some work.
It takes work. It takes work. I mean, it really takes work. We don't have an issue where most people that suffer, I've had this conversation with a lot of friends, and what you find is that most people that suffer from health conditions put themselves in that position, right? I'm not talking about like rare cancers, or I'm talking about the most common diseases, whether it's diabetes or it's heart disease or obesity. Like the most common diseases are happening because we are putting ourselves at risk on a daily basis through our actions, through our thoughts.
I have a question about, it bounces right off that, and it revolves around habits, addiction, and the idea of balance. I have some friends, husband and wife, who have a baby. They are both, the husband and wife, morbidly obese. And so they are on kind of two ends of the spectrum on what to feed the little one that's like 1.5. Started eating regular food, about a year ago. On one hand, it is certainly the argument of we have not just the genetics to be overweight, the addiction genetics, like they both know, and they're both a bit addicted to food. And so the question is, one says we need to feed him everything because we don't want him to think things are wrong, like a marshmallow or an M&M. We want him to be balanced around food. And the other end of the spectrum, the other spouse says, no, we can't even introduce these flavors and processed sugars to him because then he has the propensity, because of the genetics, to be addicted to these types of foods. What do you say to them?
Well, unfortunately, our kids don't learn from what we tell them. They learn from what we show them.
Mm-hmm.
So they can restrict all the food that they want, or they can introduce all the food they want. That kid is going to learn from the actions of the parents.
Mm.
So I'm an eternal optimist. So on the flip side, the good news is that at a certain point, that kid will be able to make his or her own decisions and will look at the parents and say, that is not the life that I want to live.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully it'll be at a point where they can still switch whatever, and the beauty of the human body is, I tell people all the time, I'm like, everyone is so obsessed with this, this device, right? That's like a supercomputer in your pocket, right?
For those listening, he's picked up a phone.
Yeah. Thank you. People are obsessed with their iPhones, and granted, it's a pretty cool device. It pales in comparison. But when I say pales in comparison, it does not compare. It's on two different stratospheres as it relates to a human body. Because I can tell you one thing. I can take this phone right now and drop it on the floor. I promise you, it will not repair itself. The human body is so resilient. We damage it on a daily basis. We would never dream of taking a Ferrari and putting water and sugar and cow feces in the tank and expect it to run. We wouldn't do that. Yet we do it to our bodies every single day of the week. And we expect our bodies to work well, not just to work well, but to perform like race cars. And then when they don't, we're like, oh, the shock. I'm appalled. It must be my genetic coding. It is not your genetic coding. It's all the crap you're putting into your body that you've been putting into it 24/7 for the last X number of years. But guess what? The beauty of it is that our bodies are incredibly resilient. And the minute you stop and you start to fuel it, you start to nourish it from the inside out, amazing things happen. The most miraculous things happen. Your body starts to heal itself. You could reverse a lot of diseases. You could reverse morbid obesity. You could reverse a lot of type 2 diabetes. I've seen people reverse heart disease. I've seen people reverse conditions that they've had for decades by just focusing on what they're putting into their bodies and how they're moving around. I mean, it's absolutely mind-blowing. So your friends may not have a lot to offer their child until they decide they want to be the change. I've seen a lot of cases where some of my closest friends that are really insane athletes come from super dysfunctional families where parents had either addictions to food or alcohol or drugs, in some cases, all of them. And I have some really close friends that were former addicts that are insane athletes, that they just learn how to channel that, that genetic power into something super positive, right? Like it can be a superpower, or it can be, the exact opposite, right? Like your kryptonite. And if you use it as your superpower and you channel the energy and the behavior into areas where you could excel, the possibilities are endless.
I got to dive into that just a tiny bit more, because people that are listening, because not everyone is wired like the super athlete that came out of the family with like an extraordinary amount of dysfunction. We were talking earlier, how people are wired, and they're not all wired. So for this family, in speaking about habits and 21 days and they are in control right now of, they need to be showing their habits to even this 1.5-year-old, but they are in control. So from an evidence-based scientific perspective, it does seem that you crave what you eat to me anyway. So do you introduce a lot of processed sugars to a 1.5-year-old if you're hoping that they won't be activating that addiction gene? Or do you say, no, it's just everything, and then they have to watch our habits as they grow older and make their own decisions to be healthy or not? Like, can you set it up?
In a perfect world, you don't do crack to begin with, right? Like you don't take that first hit of crack, right?
Okay.
Like that's because a lot of these foods are wired to be crack, right?
Yeah.
They hit that bliss point. They're wiring that they're form. It's really unfortunate because these scientists are geniuses and they formulate these foods to hit that bliss point. So they have the right amount of sugar, the right amount of salt, the right amount of flavoring, the right amount of artificial everythings, the right amount of red 40 and all the other stuff that you don't want to put into your body. That really sets you up for failure, because once you introduce that, you give somebody an Oreo cookie and then you tell them to gnaw on a carrot, and the carrot just doesn't taste the same. Right. And when you educate your palate and you understand the importance of eating whole foods and the energy that it gives you and how it's better to be balanced and to have those, those crazy spikes. But it takes a very educated, person to understand that. You give that to a kid, and of course they're going to choose Twinkies over celery stick. I mean, it's an unfair battle. Right. So I would encourage them to put as many whole food, plant-based items in front of their kid as possible until the kid starts to make their own decisions. And then they'll say, oh, I may want to eat the same Oreos that mom and dad is eating. And then you can have a conversation about why that probably shouldn't be, because you may have, the same genetic traits that we have and the same propensities to addiction that we have. And this is why so being open about it, it's obviously going to go a very long way, but at the same time, nothing will replace the actions that they themselves take on a daily basis, because it's only it's only a matter of time before the kid looks and says, well, wait a second, like, you could do that at 1, at 2, at 3, at 4, at 5, maybe even at 6, but at a certain point they're going to go, well, why am I eating celery sticks and you're eating that thing that looks really cool and smells really delicious? I want that, right? So there's going to be some sort of like conversation that needs to be had there at the right time, obviously. But I would encourage them to take this as an opportunity. What I'm saying in a long-winded way is take this as an opportunity to bring about change in your own life. Because the minute that you empower yourself with this, you have empowered your child with it. Because what winds up happening is that the child can very easily take the victim mindset and say, well, I'm wired just like you're wired, and I want to eat what you're eating, and I'm going to enjoy food the way you've enjoyed it. And if you haven't been able to beat it, then what makes you think that I'm going to be able to beat it, right? Like, if you're poor, why shouldn't I be poor? If you're uneducated, why shouldn't I be uneducated? If you're dumb, why shouldn't I be dumb? If you're falling to all of these bad habits, then what makes me any better than you, mom and dad? Like, that's a really tough conversation to have. Really, really tough conversation to have. But when you can do it, I mean, it's very empowering. Yeah. Like, my kids see it on a daily basis, every single day. And it brings me great joy to be able to know that I put in front of them are the tools for them to live their best life. And they may not always make the right decisions, when they're, 20, 30, whatever, 40, but at the very least, they started off with the right foundation. And I think it's a responsibility as a parent. Like, they didn't ask to be born into this planet. You don't want to raise them into disease. That just is super unfair and unfortunate. So if you're going to do your job, if you signed up for the role, you've got to do it right. And you owe it to them to live your best life, because it's a responsibility that you have as a parent. By the way, being morbidly obese, you already know you're predisposing yourself to early morbidity. I mean, like, you're a ticking time bomb. I mean, it's really sad, but that's the case. And so if you really love your child and really want to help them, you have to start by helping yourself. It's that whole, like, put your mask on first before you can help others.
Do you have a habit, a keystone habit that helps you start your day well, so that, you probably you have your habits so wired in, but do you know of any, your clients, or maybe one that does help you really start your day off well and help you make good decisions the rest of the day? For me, it's exercise. Some people, it's meditation. I don't know, Dotsie, Love to hear what yours is too. But Marco, what is yours?
Gratitude.
Mm.
That's my
Tell me how
first
that.
my first thought in the day. I wake up. I typically wake up like this, and I jump out of my bed, and I'm like, yes, I get to do this one more time. And it's just, I'm grateful that I'm here, that I wake up feeling energized and feeling great, and that I get to do it all over again. I really, I mean, it's not, I don't just say it, it's exactly how I feel every single morning. I'm grateful to be able to do it again. And I think about what are the things that I want to do differently, and what I want to do better. And yes, just like you, I wake up, first thing I'll do is I'll have my morning cocktail, which is warm water, or sometimes it's super hot, sometimes it's just warm, with ginger, turmeric, green tea, and some lemon. And then once I've finished that, then I'll go work out. But it all starts with gratitude, knowing that I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. So I don't take anything for granted.
Yeah, that's like goals right there. That is not the drink that I start the day with, but it happens at some point during the day. So I get some points for that. What are you trying to do better? You seem so incredibly healthy and almost picture perfect to us, to our audience. What are you trying to do better?
So many things. I'm trying to figure out a way to do more during the day. It's crazy as it sounds, running my business, but I'm always looking for ways to be able to help more, to be able to spread the message, to be able to empower people, more people. I truly believe that health is happiness. I really, really believe that when people feel their best, they act their best. And I really believe that a healthier planet will lead to a happier planet, which will, in some, sort of a few degrees of will end all of the, needless wars, unnecessary fighting, unnecessary, like I don't watch television. I love movies, but I don't watch the news because it's, so like doomsday, everything is like fear mongering. But I'll read the papers in the morning, when I'm having this drink, I'll read a few papers, and it's like, so-and-so shot, his wife and killed him, himself. And this person shot someone in the street, and then this person did. And it's so much violence. And I really think that it comes from a place of being unhappy. And so many people are addicted to antidepressants and are just really walking around with no purpose, without, when you look at like the wonderful work that Dan Buettner's doing with the blue zones, and you look at one of the keystones of longevity, it's purpose. It's waking up with purpose. And if you wake up with purpose, and if you wake up with a passion, it makes you feel better about your life. It makes you feel better about what you're doing and how you're doing it. And I think that ultimately, if you empower people with tools to be able to live a better life, you'll make them happier, and that will make them treat other people happier. So I'm just trying to continue to figure out ways to get the message to more people, whether it's books or beautiful conversations like this that I'm so grateful to have. But just finding ways to be able to impact more while I'm here. I mean, we're here for such a short period of time, that if you use the time wisely, I think, once is enough. But I'm trying to stretch today. I'm trying to put like 30 hours into one day. And then at the same time, I have 4 kids that I absolutely adore, and I want to spend, every waking moment with them. So again, which is why I found like this really beautiful balance where I'm home a lot now. And I'm literally in and out of the room. I'll walk in, I'll just be like, hey, what's going on? What are you guys up to? What are you looking at? What are you studying? And the minute I get off this call, I'll walk in there now, and I'll go chat with them for a little bit. But yeah, just being more present, being more in the moment with the people that I love, the people that I'm around, and being able to share the message with as many people as possible, because it's too powerful a message to keep to yourself. So whenever I have the opportunity, I want to share it, in a non-judgmental, very, open-minded way. Because I think a lot of times the messaging has a lot to do with how people react to it. So it's like, lean as much as you want. If it's just, green tea in the morning instead of a, latte with whole milk, then great. Take the milk out of the latte and do just, black coffee or green tea. And if you want to do 2 meals a day, fantastic. If you want to do 3 meals a day, even better. And if you want to get your kids to come along for the ride with you, amen.
Mm-hmm. I heard you speak about your company, 22 Days Nutrition, sells protein powders, and you wanted to practice Kaizen with your company. And so you took the plastic container that the protein powder was in, you ditched that because it not being sustainable, and now it's in a recyclable container, or certainly one that's less damaging to the planet. Paper. Yeah. I just thought that was a great story and something that people might not know about you. And
that's so cool that you know that, by the way. Kudos to you. It's so cool that you took the time to see that. I mean, I love that. Thank you. That's very, very sweet of you. Look, the reality is I'm all kinds of crazy because I go down these paths where I'm always, and I really, really live it. I live and breathe. How can I be better? Mm-hmm. And I just sat there one day thinking to myself, well, wait a second. We're doing all of this good by trying to get people to move towards a plant-based diet. And then we see these recurring customers that are obsessed with our protein, and it's just all these empty plastic containers. I was like, yeah, what was I thinking? I was like, oh, well, I could just continue and act as if it's no big deal because everybody else is doing it. Yeah. Or I could be the change that I want to see in others. Yeah. And I'm like, it's never too late to say, like, you know what, I effed up. I should have thought about it a little bit more. This is kind of like the norm in the space. But I pulled myself to a different standard. So I just said, you know what, there has to be another way. And my team was just like, you're crazy. It's going to cost us way more money. Those canisters, we don't pay for them. It's the cost of, basically just, putting the powder in, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, no, it has to be done. It has to be done. It has to be done. And I pushed, and literally it was like a 6-month process to find this, biodegradable paper. It was a little more complicated than I thought it was going to be, but it felt so good because a lot of people didn't notice. Most people didn't say a single thing about it. Some people were like, oh, that's really cool. It's nice of you. But the reality is I didn't do it because I wanted a pat on my back. I did it because it was the right thing to do. And in life, you just have to do the right thing. Whether or not someone's watching, you just have to do the right thing. And we decided we wanted to do the right thing. And we did it. And it's costing me more money. And we're making less money. And it erodes my margins. But it makes me feel so good to make less money because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And it's what we should all be doing every day. Like, you make a bad decision, it's okay. You're not going to be judged by the mistakes that you make. You'll be judged by how you react to those mistakes. And if you continue to do them, right? Like, people won't judge you or remember you for the thing you did one time. You don't just do one, act of kindness. And then people are like, oh, he was the Dalai Lama. It's what you do over time, right? It's repetition, right? Like, you make one mistake, so what? No big deal. Just fix it. It's how you bounce back from those mistakes, how you bounce back from those challenges, how you look at the obstacles as opportunities, and you take that as a moment in time to be able to reset, to be able to rewire, whether it's a habit or something that you just could have done better, and challenge yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to do it because I can and I should. But again, thank you. I appreciate you noticing that.
It proved once again that you're a man of great character.
Thank you.
And that means a lot. So,
and purpose.
Yes.
Or one of the 22 laws of green print. I haven't memorized all of them, but you mentioned that we do not plan to fail. We fail to plan. Is there one that is centered around purpose? One of the laws?
I think so many of them have it rooted in, Kaizen is purpose, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Perfection is the enemy of progress is really its purpose, right? Like, do you do it because you want to be perfect and you just want that gold medal, or do it because you want to be your best, because you want to show up as your best self every single day? Why are you doing it? The why is so important. A lot of times we don't really think about the why, right? Like, why are you doing this, right? Like, are you asking for that, statin because you want to live your best life, or because you want a quick fix to what ails you today, right? Are you, like, when you really examine the choices you make on a daily basis, I think it's really important for you to understand the why you're doing it. Because if you question the why, you'll realize that you decide a different approach based on what you feel that why is for you, right? Like, you think about it, like, as an example, and I'll go back to it because I've said it a couple of times, but heart disease is the #1 killer. And if we could eradicate heart disease, oh my God, the world would be so much better off. But just think about that for 1 second, right? Like, when you look at whether it's a statin or any other medication that you could be taking, if you're taking the medication to, in your mind, sort of help you with your condition. But you stop for a second. You say, but why? Why do you want help with that condition? Well, because I don't want to die. Okay, but why don't you want to die? Well, because I want to be alive. Well, why do you want to be alive? Well, I mean, I love my wife. I'm really, married almost 20 years now with my wife for 26 years. And I adore her. She's my best friend. And I want to be around. I want to be with her. And I'm obsessed with my kids. And I want to be around my kids. And I want to see my kids. Okay, so getting down, peeling all those layers and getting to the real why, then it might change the way you think to know that by taking this, you're not really treating the underlying cause, you're just masking it.
Yeah.
This approach would help you achieve that, albeit maybe a longer process, maybe a little bit more time consuming, maybe a little bit more effort, but in the end, a much better result. There's no question. But a lot of times we don't have the time to share that process. And a lot of the doctors don't have the time, the energy, or the skill set to be able to have that conversation, to have as deep a conversation, to have as meaningful a connection with their patient, because they're rushing to try to make ends meet with their practice. It used to see 10 patients a day is now seeing 36 patients a day, right? So instead of spending 30 minutes with you, they only have 2 minutes with you. And they're not going to sit and have this, hour-long conversation about how you could be the change that you want to see. They're going to tell you, here's how you fix it, because I know that most people are not going to adopt a plant-based diet. Right. So again, sorry for being so long-winded every time you ask me a question, but it's the only way I know how. I mean, it's like you really want to affect change. It starts by understanding the why.
So if people can't get it from their doctors, they should get it from your books. The Green Print, the 22-Day Revolution Cookbook. You also wrote a book in 2009 about exercise and the 4 power moves, the 4 motions to transform your body for life. Give us one of those motions that maybe our listeners and watchers could maybe practice today as one of their new habits.
Well, it's really simple. It came down to me having conversations with thousands of people wanting to know what it was that I did, right? Like people will use not knowing how to work out as an excuse, or not having money for a trainer as an excuse. Well, of course I can't be that. I don't have the money she has. I can't have all the experts she has around her. But the reality is it doesn't come down to that. So the 4 motions are moving the 4 joints, right? Moving your shoulder, your elbow, your knees, and your hips. And if you can activate those different areas, it doesn't matter if you're doing this. It doesn't matter if you're doing this. It doesn't matter if you're doing this. As long as you're moving those areas, you're going to feel great. So it's about getting people to a place where, again, it goes back to empowerment. It goes back to taking away those restrictions and replacing them with opportunities, right? Like removing the obstacles, putting opportunities in place. You don't need a trainer. You really don't. It's nice if you have one, but guess what? Your trainer could be your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your neighbor across the street. It could be a community group that you get together and you say, hey, you know what? We should all walk in the morning together. Do you want to walk with me? Do you want to walk? Let's all walk and we'll just chat and we'll talk, daily events, weekly news, world news, what have you. And you can create your own little network without needing exercise equipment, without needing an expensive gym membership, without needing an expensive machine in your home. You don't need anything at all except for this beautiful, miraculous body that you've been given, that you've been gifted, right? To be able to stay in your best shape. The most sustainable form of exercise in the world, do you know what it is? It's walking. Anyone can do it anywhere, anytime. Yeah. And most of the communities, whether it's looking at the blue zones or looking at high performing, over 50 groups, what you'll find is that most of them love walking. So you could walk, you could sit and stand at home. There's 100 times 10 ways that you can move your body. It's just about moving. Right? Like a lot of times people ask me, well, what's your favorite form of cardio? And I say, never mind me. What do you like to do?
Yeah.
Because if I tell you I love to run, I hate to run and my back, I'm not going to do anything because you already said running was the best. No, the best form of cardio is the form of cardio you enjoy the most. Why? Because you'll be sustainable.
People say all the time, I can't run. And I honestly can't run. A little jogging, but the joints, the the hips specifically that you're speaking of, I have just overdone, I guess. And they're just in all sorts of pain when I run. And so when you travel, it's like, that's when I'm pissed that I can't run, because it just requires some shoes, right? It's just so easy. So what I've been doing is, I love to walk though. Love, love, love it. Even if you don't love it, it's easy when you travel just to take some shoes. And what I've been doing is looking on Google, anywhere you go, wherever you are, unless you're like in Wyoming, you can find a steep hill. You can, they're everywhere. And so that's the thing now when I travel, is just wherever the steepest, and I just do serious intervals up and down, and I'm walking, I am not running, but holy smokes, that'll get your heart rate up. So like, when there's a will, there's a way, like you're saying.
Absolutely.
Like, find it. You find what you need to make it happen. Yeah. Exactly.
30 minutes a day, just get out there, and you'd be surprised what it does for you. Just, you both know very well. It does something to you. You're like, I don't really have to leave in 30 minutes. I can put in another 5. And you just get, your mindset just changes. Your energy changes, everything. Even if it's a day that like you feel like you have no time whatsoever, just put in 5 minutes. Just do something, and you'll feel very quickly your mindset shifts, and you're like, they could wait, or I can move something around. Because the reality is, the time isn't going to find itself. You've got to make the time for it. Yeah. You've got to make the time. There is never going to be like, I wonder what I'm going to do today. Kids are in school. Everything's done. I've ironed the whole house, and food is made for a week. What to do with myself? What to do? It's not going to happen. We know that. So you just got to put it in your calendar. Use that beautiful device that you're so addicted to, and schedule your workouts. Like, I literally on my calendar, not that I need it, but on my calendar every single morning, I have blocked out time. Someone just called me this morning, like, hey, can I see you on Friday at this time? I was like, sorry, I'm committed to me. I'm working out at that time. He's like, oh, yes. I love it. Most people would change their schedule. I won't change my schedule. Yeah. That's my me time is my most important time of the day. I can't give you the best of me if I can't be the best of me, right? Like, so if I want to be there and present for the meeting, I don't want to skip my workout. I want to get my workout in and then come see you after I feel great about what I've already done. Where's your favorite place for to connect with people, for them to find you? I guess Instagram. Yeah. 22 Days Nutrition, or our website. There's a contact there, 22daysnutrition.com. Okay. Yeah. So grateful. Awesome. To be with you. Thank you. Thank you both for your kindness and for your time. Really loved it. Thank you. Be well.